The Bible 2 by Riley Splan. Act 1. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sure there are things I could have done better, but that is in the past now. I don't know what caused me to do it. Maybe it was peer pressure. Maybe it was solely by my own doing. I knew it was wrong, but for some reason, I did it anyway. My only hope is that one day, you come to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me one more chance. I would walk through 1,000 miles of glass just to hear you say those words. I miss you, Chris. I really do. I apologize for any pain I've ever caused you. Please take me back. I'm sorry, Chris. I believe it was winter break of our junior year. Little did we know, these would be the days we would look back on and tell our kids about. We had no commitments, nothing in the world to worry about. For better or for worse, no women in our lives, nothing. We had only one thing on our minds: the game. Live by the game, die by the game. Every night was a late night for us. Our heads would not hit the pillows till the sun rose and our eyes were red. We were addicts, only chasing one thing: a victory royale. We had only started playing Fortnite a few weeks earlier. We were still new to the game, but were clapping like madmen. Where we dropping, boys? The words echoing through my head. There's only one place we can go, you said. Tilted? Tilted, we said in agreement. Time flew by as we went deeper and deeper into the night. The party was a loud, unorganized mash of screaming voices and laughs. It would have been naive of me to ignore the countless roasts to James's forehead. We were having the time of our lives. You could not go a minute without bursting into a fit of laughter. Every 30 minutes, cries for help filled our ears as James' dad walked into the... Every 30 minutes, cries for help filled our ears as James's dad walked into the room. When the B team got wiped, we would hear the angry yells of "hit ready." Yet we knew there was love behind every syllable. As I described more and more, the threads of my heart began to tear apart in the same fashion. I'm sure there was no place you would have rather been. You always loved to play. Between different squads of me, you, Isaiah, Philip, James, Sylvan, Cameron, etc., we were unstoppable. I don't know what made me do it. You were always a quiet one. Most of the time we'd love to hear your silence, but I don't know what happened. We had just finished a game when you yelled out, "I'll be right back, I'm gonna go get a snack." We were sitting at the lobby screen when a blip popped out at the top left of my screen. "James Watson has invited you to a party," it read out. "Hey, invite James to the party," Isaiah said. I pressed the home button and scrolled over to the invite button. I navigated through my friends list, pressing X on James's name. An error message pulled up reading. An error message pulled up reading, "Your party is currently full." Maybe it was a surge of adrenaline we had been feeling that night. Maybe we just had a tough loss in the game before. Maybe my thoughts were clouded by the sound of Isaiah's mom yelling at him. To this day, I do not know. Just one sentence slipped out of my lips. Well, Chris hasn't been talking anyway. I felt like someone else had taken over my body, moving the thumbstick toward your name. As the kick player option appeared, I clicked it. Christopher Villalobos has been removed from the party. I can just imagine it. Your innocent little soul sitting back down at the edge of your bed, Snack, snack in hand, ready to get on with the next game. I can imagine the words, "I'm back. Let's get it, boys," coming from your mouth. You look up just to see you have been removed from the party displayed on your screen. I cannot imagine the pain and confusion that must have filled your heart. Your questions were only met with silence, no aid in sight. James didn't even play Fortnite that night. He stayed on Skyrim for hours, not saying a word. I'm sorry, Chris. I hope that one day you'll forgive me. Act 2. I'm not sorry, Catherine. Before you start reading, let it be known that Catherine is family to me. She is like my sister, and I would do anything for her. We love each other at heart, but just like to torture each other sometimes. This letter is in good fun. Just don't let her know about it before she kills me. With that being said, let us begin. I'm not sorry, Catherine. You deserved everything. Spring break 2019 was approaching fast upon us. In the same fashion as past spring breaks, I had no plans. My mom needed the car to get to work every day, so I'd be locked away at home for most days. My only escape would be the few days when Jocelyn did not have work, or when Philip and I made plans. There is no doubt I would still enjoy my break, but it would be a drastic contrast from everyone else's Instagram post. I was sitting in Woodbury's class when my phone lit up from a Snapchat notification. Cameron has added you to a group, it read. I was a little confused, but nothing too out of the ordinary. I opened the chat to be greeted by Cameron, James, and Gus. Alright boys, spring break's coming up. Let's go rent a house in Myrtle Beach for a few days. Who's interested? Cameron said. We all replied with a cautious but hopeful yes. We discussed adding more people to the chat. Cameron G, Yoshi, Celeste, etc. Here, let me add Catherine real quick. Gus blurted out. Half a second later, Catherine has been added to the chat. Let me tell you the history with me and Catherine. Last year at lunch, she would sit with us. I'm not the most open arms, welcoming person, so Catherine asked Gus if I did not like her. No, everyone thinks he doesn't like them at first. He's fine with you, Gus said to her. I truly had nothing against her. I wasn't best friends with her, but I didn't dislike her in the least. However, there was one day last fall where we attended the girls' soccer game. After the game, we went to the parking lot and kicked around a ball. I really had a lot of fun, and I started to warm up a bit to the Coons. However, that was all thrown out the window very quickly. I first knew she was a little special when she drew the University of Tennessee at Martin logo on the college board in the internet cafe. She claimed she was going to UTK, but that was most definitely the UT Martin logo. She started arguing with me, turning as red as a tomato or even a penguin. But that is for neither here nor there. When we were planning our group prom activities, Catherine had planned on eating at J. Alexander's. Chris had made a comment on how expensive the prices were, and somehow the blame was placed on my innocent soul. She tore into my little heart, cursing out my grandmother, cousins, dog, anything you can imagine. After yelling at me about it, she switched the restaurant from J. Alexander's to Amerigo's. She truly wanted to go to Amerigo's anyway, so the instance just further proved to me she was a little cuckoo. I was just trying to extend my hands to appease her, but she slapped them down with an evil smile. Anyways, a few weeks passed and everyone had moved on. On one day, however, I was feeling a little instigative. I decided to post in the chat, "Hey, We should switch to that J. Alexander's place. Oh my God, Riley, we already switched it from that. I hate you, she said. That fish had taken the bait. The mouse had gone for the cheese. She was right in my trap. I had her hung by threads, controlling her every movement like a puppeteer. Now, let us think ahead to Myrtle Beach. We drove there in 2 cars, one with Chris, Celeste, Yoshi, Cameron G, and I. And the other, Catherine, Gus, James, Cameron, and Cameron's mom. Catherine was probably causing drama once again, so her car had not left for 2 hours after hours. We arrived much earlier, so in our downtime we decided to go to Walmart for groceries. We had a collective fund of about $80, which we spent completely on food for the week. Eggs, cereal, meat, everything we needed for the week. 2 hours later, we met up with the other car at the house and unloaded our groceries. Upon entering the house, Catherine immediately started snooping through the groceries with a hound's nose, examining each and every purchase. Her jaw dropped to the floor. "Oh my God," she said. "I can't believe you. This is a joke, right? Bread and butter pickles? That is absolutely disgusting. Oh my God, how could you? That's it. Come on, Gus, we're going back to the store." I shrugged her off, probably in another one of her moods. The fridge didn't have drinking water, so we needed to go back to the store anyway. Me, Chris, and Cameron continued playing Brawlhalla on the TV for the next 2 hours. Suddenly, the door slammed open and a stream of grocery bags and attitude came in. They continued to bring another $70 of groceries until our fridge was completely full. "All right, I need $10 from each of you for these groceries," Catherine stated angrily. Chris and I turned to each other and busted out laughing. "You realize we're only here for 3 days, right?" Chris said. "You're out of your mind if you think I'm ever paying $10 for your cravings," I joined in. Then, out of nowhere, Chris and I got hit with the Catherine Gus tag team. If you had never heard the myths about it, it is one of the deadliest forces the earth has ever seen. The two rained down insults onto us about how we were ungrateful for them and needed to give them our money. It was only $10, but it became clear I needed to be the Gandhi who would fight for our principles. Chris and I stood as strong as we could in the wake of the tag team, but Catherine used Celeste as a weight to make Chris cave to their terrorism. At that moment, it became clear I needed to continue to fight the good fight and avenge my fallen brother. After another hour of the tag team's attacks, Gus stuck a note to the fridge and all the food I was not allowed to eat. Catherine was angry at me for the rest of the trip, and we all lived happily ever after. Act 3. Selb House Down. Once upon a time, there was a magical place. A magical place where children's dreams can turn to reality in front of their eyes. A place in which there is no arguing or fighting. The only sounds you hear are that of the birds chirping and the flowers blooming. Well, Selb's house is the exact opposite of that. When others are there, the most similar description is that of a war zone. If you listen closely enough, you can hear the house screaming as if it cries for peace. Whenever our friend groups makes plans together, Selbin often hears his house as a location to meet. His house is a cute 3-bedroom condo in the midst of Antioch. He has a large spare room, complete with a couch, television, and PlayStation 4. To say the least, it is a perfect place for a night with the boys. However, I believe that God wept the first time Selbin invited us all over. You would think that an intelligent group of students from MLK would be calm and respectful when invited to another person's home. Yet winning the lottery was ever more likely to happen. The first incident I can remember It was just the second time I'd ever been over to Sylvan's house, around sophomore year, I believe. I was accompanied by Gus, James, and Isaiah. We slept over and watched Stranger Things since I hadn't seen it. Everything was surprisingly orderly. The sun rose as a new day came upon us. I thought that we had made it out unscathed, however, doom was impending. I was sitting on the couch watching a video, James next to me on his laptop. Gus was across the room looking toward the corner at his phone. James gave me a silent nod and slowly got up, approaching Gus from behind. He was only a few inches away when he rose his hand up and slapped it with a hard crack against the back of Gus's neck. "Oh, you're gonna pay for that," Gus yelled as he turned around, attempting to grab at James's shirt. James turned and started running away, jumping onto the couch. As James was midair in his leap, Gus pushes him, sending James's butt right onto his laptop screen. He got up, examining the cracked screen of static that was now showing. As soon as the shock wore away, James looked up at Selbin and asked, "Hey, do you have a spare laptop?" Fast forward to junior year, where again we're at Selbin's house. Our group was huddled around the PlayStation late that night, playing some games. Gus had fallen asleep earlier, but woke up to the sound of us yelling. In his anger, he started slapping James's controller, trying to get us to stop. James held it firmly, but after enough blows, he said, "I'm going to let it go." Pause. Gus thought it was a bluff, but sure enough, James let it go. As Gus slapped the controller again, it was sent flying into the wall. There was a large bang as the controller bounced off, leaving a noticeable dent in the wall. Time went on and senior year approached. We had 13 hungry people in the house waiting to eat. Cameron was cooking bacon sandwiches when the grease started popping from the pan. In caution, he turned the heat down from the stove. But Catherine reached over, turning it back up and saying, "Come on, we need this bacon cooking." The grease started popping up even more, so Cameron picked up the pan to take it off the burner. As he lifted it, a big pop spit out, making him jump. Then that caused the pan to tip over, spilling grease on the burner. A tunnel of flames erupted out of the stove, nearly scorching Cameron's face. A few weeks later, a group of us were back at Selbin's house once again. Someone put on music, and Jawan started doing Jawan things. He started jumping around, hopping up on a fragile footstool. One of the legs of the stool snapped and caved in beneath him. Once again, Selbin was furious. Now, if you thought that would be the end of the terror, you'd be wrong. It was just this past Christmas, and we were exchanging gifts between our group of friends. It was getting late, so Jocelyn and I started saying our goodbyes to everyone. We were all but out of the door when Chris and James started wrestling each other. Chris picked him up like a doll and threw him over his shoulder. James started freaking out, yelling and squirming to get out of Chris's hold. Chris started squatting down to let him onto the couch when James jumped out of his grasp. James submitted his butt right into Selbin's wall, leaving 2 dents in the drywall where his cheeks had been. Jocelyn and I looked at each other for a second. "I gotta go," we both yelled out as we ran to the door. After things cooled off, I was told they hung a hand towel to hide James's butt print. I think that describes my experiences at Selbin's house beautifully. Act 4. Gill Walk. The summer before our senior year was coming to a close. It was our last chance to bathe in freedom before the stress of school and homework overtook us. We decided to go out with one last bang, taking a trip to Percy Priest for a day at the lake. We started off our day by meeting at the 7 Points Park. When I arrived, I was greeted by Gus, Cameron G, Chris, Selbin, Taryn, and Sienna. James was coming, but he was late like always. We all unloaded our things into the picnic table and hopped straight into the water. Taryn and Sienna were usually not part of our group, but they had been in the same park before. As we swam through the water, they told us to follow them to someplace down the shore. We walked for what felt like a mile until we turned a corner and saw what they had in store for us. Hanging down from a large tree was a raggedy-looking rope. On the steep bank, there was a clearing of trees that you could climb through, but the hill was composed almost of entirely slick mud. Nevertheless, Sienna and Taryn edged their way up the hill, pulling the rope with them. The rest of us boys sat in the water below them, whispering, "We really about to watch somebody die. That's crazy." At the same time, Taryn started sprinting off the cliff, swinging with the rope and dropping cleanly into the water. As the rope swung back, Sienna followed her in her path. Gus nervously looked around at the rest of us, all staring back at him. "Well, I guess that means it's my turn." Gus swung into the water, and each one of us gained the confidence to do it ourselves. In no time, the rope swing became spectacular in our eyes. As I finished what felt like my 10th jump, Sienna grabbed the rope behind me. Instead, this time as she sprinted off, she slipped in the mud in front of her. She held onto the rope tight, but just flew inches above the ground before her. Fortunately, she made it to the water safely, her barely even noticing that she almost died. She didn't begin to realize until she saw all of our mouths open staring at her. Funnily enough, just a few moments later, Chris decided that instead of running off like normal, he was going to just drop off the cliff. To say the least, once again, we almost saw someone die. The rope caught slack just a few feet before he bounced up into the lake. As we finished up with the rope swing, we began wading through the water back to our table. Each and every step was on a sharp rock, destroying our feet as we laughed through the pain. We were approaching the shore when Gus found a fishing line leading into the bank of the water. He started pulling on it, only to notice that there was a weight on the other end. As it came closer and closer, it became apparent that his weight was alive. Gus pulled a 7-inch fish out of the water, revealing a hook caught deep in its mouth. Chris and Gus made their best attempt at fish surgeons, but no avail. They were ready to give up when at once a light bulb flashed in my head. "Let's take it on a walk and show him the world before it meets its maker," I let out. I picked up a rock from the water and tied the line tight. I began sawing through it with a rock until it snapped into two. I held one end and began to walk. James the thrall became my new aquatic friend as I took him down to the shore with me. At first, he was a little resistant to our bonding time, but he grew to swim next to me. I would like to believe these are the moments he thinks back on in heaven. Others asked to walk him for a little bit, and I grudgingly agreed, but James the thrall and I both knew our friendship was something special. Once I took back his leash, he swam around, rubbing up against my legs. We came closer to the shore, and it became clear our time was going to an end. As heartbreaking as it is to say, James wasn't doing so well. Though hopeless, we still tried it one last time to give him back the life that was so cruelly stripped away from him. Our worst thoughts were affirmed once again that the hook was not coming out. It was evident that James's time on this earth was running out. I brought everyone together for a small prayer and let him go. James gave me one last rub on the leg and swam off to spend his last moments in peace. Act 5. Coffee Smuggling. Model United Nations is a 3-day student-led simulation of a United Nations Summit, where delegates proposed resolutions to the organization in an attempt to secure funding for an issue plaguing their nation. It wasn't until my senior year that I finally decided to partake in it. I had always been a fan of arguing, but doing work, not so much. James and Trenton had already signed up to compete alongside Danny and Cameron. However, as the slippery little snakes they are, Danny and Cameron bailed out last minute. James and Trenton immediately came to me, and dropped down on their knees, begging and pleading for me to be their third. After some hesitation, I agreed on one condition. If I could get Philip to be our fourth, I would go. At once, I started texting Philip, asking if he was interested. Once again, he agreed with hesitation, unsure of what was really in store. We had the next month and a half to gather research, write speeches, and prepare our resolution. However, to put it bluntly, we did none of that. Every single second spent together was wasted. Instead of preparing for our conference, we photoshopped Selbin on the moon. Yet, as the deadline to turn in our resolution approached, we agreed to get it done that night. Once again, that did not happen. I pretended to be asleep, ignoring my phone every time James called me. To further convince them, I had my girlfriend answer the phone and tell them I was sleeping. Was I wrong? Most definitely. Did I regret it? Not really. At one point, I felt bad and texted James that I was ready. James didn't reply. So you know what I did? I went straight back to sleep. Not my problem, I said to myself. Anyways, time went on and the conference came about. Everyone attending stayed at a hotel for 3 days and argued in the conference rooms downstairs. My experience was extremely positive, but those are the stories I read about in college applications. This one will reveal what really went on behind the scenes. Philip and I were sitting in our room, trying to make time pass before we went back to the conference hall. We had not been sleeping much while we were there, so the effects of sleep deprivation were most definitely starting to weigh us down. Yet, in the corner above our fridge was a petite little coffee maker. We both turned to each other and knew what needed to happen. We took the only 2 coffee packets from beside the machine and poured them inside. Alongside the other ingredients was a strange milk that was supposed to make the black coffee more enjoyable. We poured in a more than healthy proportion and turned a nice caramel color. As the slow drip ceased, we took our first sips. The caffeine began to flow through our bodies and made us much more energized. Then, as the coffee smell overtook our mouths, Philip had the great idea to mix Listerine with the coffee in order to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I hesitantly agreed as Philip began loading the purple Listerine into our coffee drinks. As it hit my lips, I was disgusted. However, out of peer pressure, I knew what I had to do. I had to down the cup. I looked at Philip. He was vomiting in the sink. However, he looked back at me and said, "We need to do this now." So, we both forced the dirty liquid down our throats. The aftertaste was minty, and even though it was disgusting, we knew it had accomplished what we wanted it to. Philip and I were not coffee drinkers, however, the dirt-tasting mixture made us want to throw up. Regardless, our bodies felt addicted to the surge of energy provided by the caffeine. We reached over to grab another pack, but there were none left. We need to get more, we said to ourselves. Then and there, we devised a plan to get as many packets as we could for the next night. First, Philip went down to the front desk to ask for more. I hid behind a pole, waiting for him to come back. Once he returned, I then went to the front desk, gave them a fake room number, and grabbed 3 more packets. Eager to gain more, we begged Trin and James to do the same thing. By the time they were done, we had already had at least 10. The thing about addiction is, you never know when to stop. We had only drunk 2 packets before then, but it felt like no amount could suffice our need. To feed our addiction, we asked detached friends also attending MLK if we could have some of theirs from their room. We went from person to person until we had at least 20 with us. Once we were gradually okay with this small amount that we had taken, we went back to our rooms to use them. One by one, we concocted each cup, again pouring the strange milk into our paper cups. The burst of feeling that followed each sip was rivaled by none other. It was like another being had taken over our bodies. We could not stop, no matter what harm it caused to us. It was then that we realized we were addicted. Since Model UN, not 1 ounce of coffee has touched my lips. I'd like to think that I've been clean, but the temptations are still there. Every day I am reminded of the ever so enlightening nectar sliding down my throat. Pause. But no, I cannot give in to my demons. We must stay strong and fight the battle against ourselves. Act 6. The Great Chap Debate. The old man rocked back and forth in his chair, twiddling with his beard. He looked across the group of young children all sitting cross-legged in front of him, eager to hear if he had one last story in him. "Well, I believe there's time for just one more," he croaked out of his wrinkled lips. The children looking upon him with great awe. But that was not enough for the old man. "If only you knew of the great debate, the one that would go to shape the world in which you stand today. If only you knew." The old man leaned back into his chair, thinking back to a past life. After a few moments, he leaned forward, putting his hands together and interlocking his fingers. "Okay, boom," he continued. It was just our sophomore year. A long-awaited winter break had finally settled upon us. The few days off we had would be dedicated to the boys. Every night of each day was spent inside a PlayStation party, where we would remain till the sun rose through our windows. This was around the time of GTA days, when we would spend hours driving through the streets of Los Santos in our $1 million cars. Well, I would at least. The rest of our group was stuck as employees to my business. Anyways, I'm getting off rack. Nevertheless, on one particular night, the party was filled with likes of myself, Selbin, Isaiah, James, and Gus. It's foggy how the great debates truly started. Perhaps it was just another thought from the great philosopher that I am. Or maybe it was just the sleep deprivation talking. If chapstick is a stick, that means chapstick is a stick of chap, I yelled to my companions. The party went silent for a few moments. The silence was only broken by someone whispering, "Oh no, there's just no way. Did he actually say that?" "What do you mean? A chapstick is made of chap? It's a stick of chap?" "Stop while you're ahead, Riley," Isaiah pleaded out. "No, it's lip balm," Selvin yelled out. "Okay, listen. When your lips are dry, right? They get chapped. So you put chap on them to fix it. The chapstick is a stick with chap in it. It makes perfect sense. A carrot stick is a stick of carrot. Chapstick is a stick of chap. When you melt the chap, what do you have? Is it still a chapstick? No. It's just chap then." "I swear to God, Riley, you're the dumbest person I know. That is not how the English language works," Sullivan shouted at me. "No, you're dumb. Oh my God. That is exactly how it works. Look up a definition." Don't ask me how, but the shouting match continued for another 2 hours as we debated the word. It only ended once 6 a.m. came around, and we could barely keep our eyes open. It would be naive to think that the debate would end there, though. The next day, we got back on the party and argued once more. We tried to find some consolidation by texting Mr. Dennehy during his break, bothering him to answer our question. The thing about our debates is that they never really stop. The argument was more than 2 years ago, and if someone brought it up again, I'm sure we could spend another hour yelling at each other. Since then, we've had many arguments over the stupidest things you can think of. Whether rainwater cleans your car, which it doesn't. The pronunciation of chalk, which caused Isaiah a mental breakdown. The definition of couch or chair. What is a sandwich? If falling down is really flying or falling. And at least 100 more I cannot remember. And no matter what Cameron tries to tell you, nobody cares if a s'more is a sandwich. Nobody at all. Act 7. Everyone hates James. There are very few people I'm close with who I've known longer than James. Our paths first crossed in 5th grade at Head Middle Magnet School. The grade was divided between 3 groups of teachers, and James and I were placed in the McCarthy-Lau group together. I remember the short little kid walking with his white polo and picked out afro. As part of Mr. Lyle's teaching philosophy, he thought it was best to spray us with a water gun and whip us with a pool noodle. I'd like to believe that James and I bonded through his abuse, making our friendship stronger. 8 years later, James and I are still best friends. Isaiah, someone I've been friends with since kindergarten, James, and I would become the Destiny Trio. Every night the rest of our friend group was acting stupid, James and Isaiah would be right by my side. James is a brother to me, and I would proudly have all my children call him uncle. This, however, does not make him immune to the hate for all the stupid things he's said and done. Now, James has said a lot of stupid things in his life, yet he's paid his dues and been roasted for it. Maybe a little too much, if I'm going to be honest. But there is one thing that I will never forgive him for. This was the summer between my sophomore and junior year, and the GTA game had once again consumed our nights. One of the primary objectives of this game was to earn money, and most of us had a few $100,000 at most. There was one challenge, however, that if completed would earn us more than $10 million each. The challenge was extremely difficult and took great precaution to complete it. But with that much money on the line, we had to try. The challenge was to complete 5 heists flawlessly, without a single death throughout. You can fail as many times as you wish, but if one person dies, then our time has been wasted. Each heist took at least an hour and a half or more to complete, so failing it would ruin us. The thought of dying and failing my team was honestly scarier than anything I had ever experienced before. To take on the feat, we assembled a team of Philip, James, Isaiah, and I. Philip, James, and I were more than competent, but Isaiah was a wild card. To put it kindly, he was not the best at the game and would most likely be the cause of our downfall. However, we had hope and started our journey. Our controllers collected sweat as the pressure to perform weighed down upon us. Isaiah the most so, as everyone had their eyes on him. Even so, we were all performing extremely well. The first heist went down flawlessly, as did the second, followed by the third. What was once a hopeful dream was beginning to turn to a real possibility. We dodged every enemy without racking in a single death, something few of us thought we could really do. We started the 4th heist, which required many setup missions before the actual exhibition occurred. We had completed every setup that had the chance of death. We were off to the home stretch. We loaded into the next setup where our only goal was to find information. I remember saying to my friends, "Alright, so look, there's no enemies that could ruin our streak, so just don't do anything stupid." The mission was in a factory-like compound, so we split up to complete the given objective. Philip and I would take the road, Isaiah would watch behind us, and James would climb up on the roof to watch from above. We failed the mission a few times by running out of time, but again, there was no possibility of death. Each time someone messed up, a bright green failed screen would pop up. As Philip and I were going down the road, the game screen popped up again. "Did we run out of time already?" I asked. Philip and Isaiah responded to me, but James was silent. As the failed screen loaded in, at the bottom it read, James Watson has died. My heart dropped. This had to be a joke, right? Everyone was silent, needing to process what we were reading. Okay, listen, I can explain, James squeaked out. A mixture of confusion and anger filled our minds. We had really just wasted more than 6 hours of our time just to die on the only mission where there was no threat of death. Without saying a word, James sent us a replay of him trying to go back down the ladder. Instead of just going down the ladder as any competent person would, James's character jumped right off the side of the building, killing himself upon impact. I love you, James, but I will never forget this. I had 6 precious hours of my life stripped away because you don't know how to use a ladder. Act 8. Savage Attack. From the outside, it may seem that my friend group only ever argues about stupid philosophical theories. But in reality, some of our arguments are real. We don't argue nearly as much as other groups do, and our arguments normally get completely resolved in a few days, but they still occur. However, some arguments take a turn for the worst. At first, it may just be a couple people fighting over something, but if unchecked, it can spread to the entire group. The first great civil war broke out around sophomore year. A small portion of our group was together one night playing GTA once again. Hysterical laughing and violent screams made up the contents of our party. Philip had recently gotten a PlayStation, so he started spending much more time with us. After late nights, deep talks, and hours upon hours in the party, he quickly became a close friend to us all. Soon thereafter, we added him to the group chat, meaning he was officially a member of our tight-knit circle. We drove around the virtual city doing God knows what, but undoubtedly having the time of our lives together. As Philip and I drove around, we picked up a random person named Savage Attack that was in the same lobby as us. There was nothing abnormal about this. We frequently did it. As we took Savage Attack on a tour of the city, a few of us agreed to add him to the party to speak with us. We thought it would be funny to talk with him and ask him whatever assortment of random questions we could think of. The word Savage Attack has joined the party flashed across the top right of the screen. As soon as he joined, we immediately started laughing to ourselves as most of our party invitations are never accepted. However, to our disappointment, we would soon find out that Savage Attack did not have a microphone to speak with us. Determined to make a new friend, Philip told Savage Attack to message him the answer to his questions. Through that method, we learned the person was a boy of our age who liked football and lived in Florida. His name was Bernard. Not the most detailed or exciting information, but our method of communication was quite slow. Philip continued speaking with the visitor, even exchanging Snapchats so they could respond to each other's questions faster. By this point, however, the joke had died for the rest of us. We continued to play our games and largely ignored Philip's conversation with the guest. In the middle of playing with the rest of our friends, my phone moved slightly across the table as it buzzed from a new notification. I looked down upon the illuminated screen, then I read, Snapchat, Savage Attack has been added to the group chat, lunch pack. Philip had added a random person we had never met to our group chat. The party was one thing, and that was just our medium to speak one another for the next few hours. The group chat was a different matter. For the group chat, we would have serious conversations with everyone, for even adding our closest peers. Despite that, Philip had just added Bernard without consulting anyone. Why did you think it would be okay to just add him? Gus angrily asked Philip. Well, I said I was going to add him and no one said anything, he snapped back. I chimed in saying, well, everyone thought it was a joke. Nobody even paid attention to it. What do you guys have against Savage Attack? He's a cool guy, Sylvan added. Thus the arguing had started. From that point, each person in the group, whether they were there for the event or not, started to take sides on the matter. Separate group chats were made on each side to consult without bother from the other side. People started muting each other in the party, consequently starting the first great civil war. The arguing raged on for the next couple of days as we tried to come to a consensus. Funnily enough, an ending came about when Savage Attack just left the chat randomly. Attitudes were still a little heated, but that largely shut down the arguing. After a few days had passed, we had all forgotten about the situation and became best friends again. The first Civil War was in the books, but would most definitely not be the last. Hey Riley, I hope you recognize how weird and unlike you to put yourself and your emotions out on the line like this. I figured the best way to end my collections of memories is by exposing my stream of consciousness as a person I am now. It's really uncomfortable, not gonna lie, but I hope it's worth it in the end. What do I want for my life? A daunting question for any 17-year-old. I have a basic idea, to say the least, but there's still a lot of unknowns. That thought scares me a lot, if I'm gonna be honest. I only know of everything that's happened in the past 17 years, but by any logic, I definitely should not be scared. Compared to my past, my decisions right now should seem like the least of my concern. I've overcome far too much to finally give in to my fears now. But the truth is, I'm scared for what feels like the first time. This is the first time where I felt like I'm not in control of my life. I've built my character on recognizing my mistakes and learning from them. No matter how life-changing an issue has been, I've always sensed that there was something I could do or could have done better. For the first time, I'm lost. I feel like my character and future is being judged by an admissions board, with not the slightest idea who I really am. I am terrified at losing my friends that have become my only family over the past several years. Right now, I am deciding between 3 schooling options: Chapman University, Boston University, and Middle Tennessee State University. The first school offered me any major of my choice alongside their highest merit scholarship. However, even with that and other scholarships, I will still be over $100K in debt after 4 years. A second school offered me 100% need and a chance to study in London, but I cannot begin working toward my major for another 2 years. The third school would let me study my major for very little cost. However, it is a much worse school overall. The weight of multiple people is on my shoulders at the moment to choose the right thing. But right now, I really just don't know what that is. It is no secret anymore that my traditional sense of family is very limited. However, this group of people has become the best family I could ever ask for. No matter how many times they annoy and frustrate me, I know that I cannot have been any luckier to meet them. That right there is exactly what terrifies me, though. I am scared that I will never be this lucky in finding another group of friends again. If I move away, odds are I'll never see most of them again. Another side note, if you hadn't noticed yet, PlayStation seems to be a crucial part in all of our stories. Every weekend after we were done with the day, we would spend the night playing games with our friends. Because of this, I have spent hundreds of hours talking with them and experiencing some of my happiest memories. So, Riley, do yourself a favor and try to play with them more. I'm sure you won't regret it. I hope that by the time you're reading back on this, you figured everything out. Everyone's placed their bets on you, so please don't let them down. But more importantly than that, don't let yourself down. You've got big dreams, and I know that there's nothing stopping you from completing every single one of them. It has never been talent that keeps you from accomplishing your dreams. If you believe that, then you've already failed. the only thing that's gotten you this far is your motivation to be the best. So I hope by now you are exactly that and unwilling to be anything else. Do not let anyone else control who you are. When the game is not going in your favor, change the rules. Redefine the boundaries and shift the culture. I know you've got it in you to do great things, so stop holding yourself back. This has been The Bible 2 by Riley Splan.